धर्मक्षेत्रे कुरुक्षेत्रे समवेतायुयुत्सवः।
ओम सहनम भवतु सहनं भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनाधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै. Let us sit down and study together, and through discussion we sharpen each other's intellect, we enrich each other. May we not bear any ill will to each other. Peace, peace, peace. Let peace prevail.
Here again, 13th chapter, our favorite chapter, Amitav. So far, it has been great. And it starts something like the name kṣetra, kṣetrajña. It's like field and the knower of the field. And it sounds like a football field, but even football field, there is a field and then somebody who knows and curates and everything. So this portion, we left knowingly because 18th verse, Krishna says, I have said that in summary, although he has said it in real detail. And it's like knowing, who we are, how this functions, it's very well described here, how does everything come together? And some people call it the blueprint of our existence or our summary of who we are. And he starts with the Prakriti and goes on to say that what Prakriti encompasses, that's the 19th verse. And Prakriti and Purusham chaiva. So Prakriti and Purush. Some people call it matter, and then subject and object. So matter or nature, Prakriti comprises of one aspect, which is mostly matter and things that are come and go. It's not permanent. It's an impermanent on one side and permanent on the other side, the consciousness on the other side. So, Prakriti and Purush, how do you explain that to yourself or to others? It's like we are composed of those two elements. The whole universe is composed of those two elements. Even, starting from a rock, which probably had minuscule consciousness, to, humans who are conscious being. So how do you explain to someone, what Purusha and Prakriti are?
The way I look at this one, the field of action and the knower of the field as energy and matter. Now, in this one, in the whole chapter, he slowly discusses that our body, ourselves, is a micro model and the universe is a macro model. Both are governed or sourced from a transcendental energy. In our case, human being, it is Atman. In the case of universe, it is the transcendental great energy, which is Paramatma or the Brahman. And then the body is made of the 5 elements, which composes the matter. In the similar fashion, the universe, the material world, is also made by those 5 elements. These things always make the visible world together. That's how it functions. So we must understand one thing, as you said, the natural element, whatever it builds, it runs through 3 stages: a beginning, a period of sustenance, and ultimately its destruction. Whereas through this entire cycle of the material world, the energy, which is in our case the Atman, even though the body destructed, the Atman is never lost. In the similar fashion, in the material world of universe, which is made of the 5 elements, also can get through involution and re-emergence. Through that, the Brahman is never destroyed. So the whole idea is Prakriti and Purusha. It is the composite of 5 natural elements, what constitutes, and the other hand, the energy which is the source and governs it. So there are 2 models. One is a micro model at individual level, and then there is a universal model.
Coming back to the Purusha and Prakriti. Prakriti is not just the matter. It's more than those 5 elements, right? Anything in the universe. And so that's what Krishna is saying here, that Prakritim Purusham Chaiva Vidyanadi Ubhavapi Vikaranscha Gunaschaiva. So he puts this vikaras, all the emotions and modifications,
Exactly.
some people translate it, they all are part of that Prakriti.
Exactly. You are absolutely right to point that out. In a previous verse, he says that it is our karmendriyam, the part of the body which the mind, the ego, the emotions, various positive and negative, all are manifestation of Prakriti. So yes, you are absolutely right when I try to make it very simple as a natural element, but there are some other like emotions, thoughts also constitute part of Prakriti. Absolutely right.
So anything basically that is kind of, that's why some people say subject and object. So the one that experiences is the Purush. And whatever is being objectively experienced, whether it is emotions or hunger or anger or happiness, anything like that, or even thoughts, they are all constitute the Prakriti. And they together, when they come together, when they are unified, then we manifest as a complete person.
Yes, actually, that's what is called causal, and I want to emphasize the word
That's
causal.
the next verse.
Causal material world.
Yeah.
Or causal material body or individual or something like that.
Yeah. So vikaranscha gunaschaiva vidhi prakriti sambhavan. So on one side there is Prakriti, all these elements. The other side is the Purush. And then comes the sticky part, what makes you stick, the glue is the gunas. There is consciousness, there is the matter, and the matter constitutes all the elements that we talked about. And when they come together, there is this, us human being or any other existing existence. And then in our case, these gunas are the kind of glue that puts it together. I mean, so once we understand that,
anytime anything is made of Prakriti, gunas are already, or the traits is already inherent in it.
Yeah. But that is what kind of, he comes to that karya karana kartivtve hetu prakriti ruchyate purusha sukha dukkhanam bhoktritve hetu ruchyate. So the Purush and the Prakriti, when they come together, they are still kind of neutral people. But once the gunas, which sticks, comes in, then this Purush starts feeling this sukha dukkha nam bhaktritve. So that's when he starts feeling and becoming like identifying sometimes that it's me, the body is me, or the existence is me. So this ego or my identity starts happening at that stage for normal people.
The soul is beyond Trigunatita, is beyond the three traits. However, when the soul is embodied, okay, then the soul functions along with the gunas.
Right.
Okay.
Right. But gunas is the binding force.
Yeah. Once it is embodied, there's no escape from it.
I was thinking, Amitabh, it's like, why does Krishna have to say all this to Arjuna? Why does he need to know? And again, it comes back to being in medicine, or in any faculty. You can take this as an example. Sometimes we go and study like 2 + 2 is 4, or what is the anatomy of liver and dissection and everything. And at that stage, we don't understand what its applications are going to be. So Krishna telling these things to Arjun is not simply by saying that you live in a Sakshi Bhav. Many people will say, oh, this means that you should always be, it's like unattached or non-attached and non-functioning. That's not what Krishna's goal is, because we have seen after every lesson, almost every chapter, many times we have seen Uttisthata Parantapa. It's like he wants Arjuna and us to act. He wants us to function and function at a high level.
Yes, when you say about the high level, it is functioning with this self-realized knowledge.
Okay? Yeah, I understand. But yoga karmashu kausalam, that's why I said that, it's not an ordinary. I mean, Arjuna, before Gita, when he was totally confused, and after Gita, when he gets the clarity, that's what he's bringing. Gita brings clarity. So if it brings clarity to you and me, and clarity of everything, like who am I? What is my composition? To me, it directly helps you function at a different level, because you transform. Like after 11th chapter, we said Arjuna will never be the same. So it's when we say Arjuna will never be the same, after reading, we are already 13 chapters, coming to 18, I think there will be a transformation happening in our lives as well.
Sure. It is this chapter, to me, is a very pragmatic chapter, because
that's what I was,
very pragmatic, because this one tells us how the visible material physical world is, okay, and how we are constituted as a human, and how we function at a higher level with this knowledge that he's imparting.
Right.
That's
that's it sounds very simple, but that's such a huge thing. It's just understanding that is huge for me.
Of everybody.
Purusha Prakriti sthot hi bhungte Prakriti jan gunan karanam gunasangosya sad sadyoni janmasu. So now he's saying the practical aspect. And I'll read it in Hindi for people, and we can translate that. Prakriti mein sthit hi purush. Prakriti se utpann trigunaत्मक पदार्थों को भोगता है. So those sticky glue that we said, gunas, sat, raj, and tam, which we will explore more in the next chapter, is the one that determines what you are doing. Bhogta, you are enjoying life, you can say. And then that is what determines what your next life will be. So he's starting from this life, what your composition is, how you function, because of those gunas. They become the drive. It's like rajogun is the drive mainly. And satogun is the, we talked about, the light, and tamogun is like your inertia. And sometimes we need all the three guna at different times. But that is what a different composition, different mixture of those gunas, and that's how you function. And how you function determines how you are going to. So you basically are responsible for what's going to happen to you.
Yeah, I think the most important point is, you see, we talked about how mind works with perception and the traits.
Right.
Yeah, okay. So we have to be aware of the limitations of our perception, its advantage, disadvantage, and then in the same way, which is the preponderant trait within us at that particular point,
Right.
and 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 these should be discriminated, being aware, and then function. That's
Right.
what.
And you can only discriminate best if you
Yes,
know that these gunas are working, for you or against you, but you are under the influence of the gunas. Once you
yes,
know that, then the buddhi or mind will work differently. I think
exactly,
knowing brings the difference.
exactly. Actually, it is the knowledge that guides us,
Yeah.
and it kind of filters everything, and that's what Arjun becomes. Krishna never tells him not to get into the war. He tells him to get to the war,
Yeah.
but he wants Arjun to be the warrior with that spiritual
All this
knowledge,
knowledge
all this knowledge behind it.
and the
So
experience. I mean,
exactly,
when I say experience, it's like, we talked about riding a bike rather than reading about riding the bike, reading surgery versus doing surgery. So that is, the knowledge with experience, that deep knowledge, you can call it.
yeah,
That is what,
it is knowledge and being,
yeah,
or knowledge and realization,
right.
or knowledge and wisdom.
Yeah. Experienced surgeon, right? you know,
Basically,
no, I mean, when you say experienced somebody, you are saying that, that person is not only read the book or knows how to do it, but has done it and done it many times.
and of course, he has built upon his practical experiences and his own methodology, uh, tempered by the knowledge. That's all.
Yeah. So, it's what I love about Krishna and Gita is like it's so systematic. I mean, he doesn't, miss a step, and every kind of, spoken word has deep meaning, and it's like no wasted spaces here. Um, Upadrasta Anumanta cha Bharta Bhokta Maheshwara. I mean, this is it just one verse. I mean, just one part of a verse says so much. Upadrasta, you are Sakshi, Anumanta, Bharta, Bhokta, all this, and Maheshwara. He brings the Paramatma here. Maheshwara, it's like
Mhm.
is an expression for that in my understanding. And then he said, Paramatmeti chak yukto dehe asmin Purusha para. So he's saying that, the Atma that is in there, it is Sakshi, it is, like witness. And then um, it is the one which facilitates Anumanta, it agrees with things to be done.
And also enjoys bhokta.
Yeah, and the bhokta, which is the uh, enjoying the kind of food, or enjoying life. So, and then Maheshwara, this Atma is same as Paramatma, as you said, the microcosm, you say. I mean,
Micro model, I call it. Yeah.
yeah,
So here it is very important.
yeah,
One point we should always stress: most of the people, when hear a spiritual talk, they talk about Atman being witness. it is not only witness. This verse says that he is
This is, yeah,
also tied by guna. So there he goes and enjoys it and and experiences it, and that's all. So
and
it is
Bharta
not,
nourishes as well.
yes. So it is not only a mere witness.
Yeah.
That's what is important to stress.
And Maheshwara, you know, is the
And
ultimate as
yet
well.
he's
So
the
this
super soul.
Atma is, he has expanded the meaning of Atma.
That's right.
And Paramatmeti chapyato dehesmin Purusha para. Not the power, it's not so much the power, but, you know, it's, as you said, the being.
As a matter of fact, in this very chapter, later verse, he does talk about Atman, the relationship between Atman and Brahman.
Next one, he's simply saying that, you know, yayeva vetti Purusha, Purusham, Prakritim cha gunai saha. You know, the way, if you understand this, you really understand what the reality is. I mean, so the understanding that there is Prakriti, there is Purush, there is gunas, and all this together forms you.
That's right. At a micro model of human, yes,
Yeah.
that's true. At a universal level of universe, that's also true in a much larger scale.
Yeah. And this knowing is important to Krishna. He says that this knowing is the one, once you understand and once you really know this, then you are beyond life and death.
Exactly. Exactly. And that's very, very important to understand.
Mm.
I must mention, when I was younger, uh, often I heard that once somebody got the Brahma Gyan and he became immortal. I didn't understand the meaning of it. How can he be immortal? He dies and all those things. Okay.
Amritasya putra.
Amrita Shaputra. So this is what it tells, the how the universe and we at individual level, we are constituted, how we function, and this is something which is beyond birth and death. Okay. So that's what it is. It gives you a very, very spiritual global view of our functioning and our lives and what we see all around.
Yeah.
In multitude of forms.
It sounds so simple. Prakriti, you know, which is matter, nature, and plus more, you know, plus your feelings and your every emotions. Then the Purush, which is consciousness, basically, which is, you know, we call Atma, and together, then the sticky glue kind of gunas. And once you have all that, then you start working. And what you do depends on many factors, your man, buddhi, ahankar, and all these gunas. They all come together now. And that determines what path you are going to take. So it's basically you are determining your own path.
One thing, Krishna, can I mention about a pitfall which confused me for a long time?
Yeah.
This word Prakriti and Purush
Yes.
is not a Vedantic terminology.
You're right.
It is inherited from Sankhya.
Yeah.
Okay. In Sankhya, Prakriti or the nature and the Purush are two separate entities. Okay. In Vedanta, Prakriti comes out of Purush. Okay. So it's in Shankar, the Atman, the soul, because it is embodied, it changes. In Vedanta, the Atma never changes, just like Paramatma or the Brahman. Okay.
So, yeah, go ahead.
So that's why many a times when we talk about Prakriti and Purush, we kind of jumble it together. Okay. Actually, what it here means, the transcendental energy at our individual level as Atman, transcendental energy at the level of universe as Brahman, the material world or the causal world is made of natural element and all the emotions and the thoughts and everything. Okay, there's a universal thought or universal desire to create, destruct, and all that. Altogether, this energy and the material world. Now, when you use the Purusha and Prakriti, what Gita is mentioning is that energy and the material world with all of the things that I mentioned. We should not confuse this Prakriti and Purush of Sankhya Yoga of Kapil.
Yeah, so we are kind of focusing on Gita right now. So
That's
we
right.
can continue with this discussion because, it's like when you say hot and cold sounds like two different things, but it's one, like temperature. So in many ways, it's a way to express, how do you express something? It's, if it is all Advait, then you have to, bring out Purush from that or bring out Prakriti from that. And then you say, okay, it's from one. So it's a question of, for sake of good explanation, I think Krishna has chosen a good explanation which makes sense to us. And when they are united, they are one. When we start trying to take three different philosophies and we can just say that they are separate philosophies rather than try to mix them, try to explain Gita from, Kapil Muni or Vedantic. We love to, but,
You see, our session is based, we are trying to get the concept. We are
concept from Gita.
Yes.
I mean, we do bring in concept from outside because we love them so much, but we are focusing on Gita.
Because these terminologies has been often used, okay, and it is not really emphasized whether it is from Gita or from other philosophies. That's why average people and also like people like me get confused. So my point is what you just say is very important. This Prakriti and Purush in context of Gita. That's what I want to say.
I mean, I was listening to Sarva Priyanand today, and he was talking about his talk is subject matter. And it's a very similar talk, the subject and an object, and then the gunas come in between. So, yes, and that talk was not necessarily on Gita or from Gita. It was just a subject matter, it's a beautiful talk. And it talks about that. But we come to Gita again, and so he's described these things, as statements like this is this is that, and together you determine your life. You kind of choose what you are doing. It's your choice ultimately, and then whatever you do and whatever you choose determines what will happen to you next life or whatever, wherever you go. That path we have talked before as well. Then he says, how do you know about it? That's what is the learning process. I love this. I really love this.
This verse is very important.
This is eye-opening for me, and because it says, dhyane natmani pashyanti. So one is dhyan. Kechidatma namatmana. Anya sankhena yogena. Sankhya yoga, matlab gyan, right? Some people. Karma yogena chapan. So he says some people know it through dhyan. Some people know it through gyan. Some people know it through karma yoga. And then he says those who can't do all these three, anye tvevo majananta shrutva nebhya upasate. They do it by hearing. So he does not say which was his superior. I mean, you can say that the first one he mentions is superior, but ultimately you have the same knowledge. You go to the same place after this. So it is so important that, sometimes we feel like if I can do 5 hours of dhyan. I was talking to somebody in Delhi 2 days ago, and they were, I can get into trance in 2 minutes. Is it's like, yes, that's great, but doesn't mean that someone who doesn't do dhyan cannot get to the same place.
Yeah, I think you put the really nail on the head. The first thing, it is not a demeaning thing. This verse tells you different methodology, whatever applies to you. And the methodologies he mentions, one is yogic meditation. Who cannot do yogic meditation or do not have time or whatever reason, whatever predicament they may have, they can go to the knowledge, spiritual knowledge, as we are discussing Gita and trying to understand that. Or we can do through the action of karma yoga in our work. And people who cannot do either of these three, by hearing, okay, by watching with Gyanshakshu, okay, and they can get the same knowledge. Ultimately,
No, but even listening.
Yes, and listening.
Some people can
listening, whatever it is. The question is, you get the knowledge, okay? Sometimes, like remember when we were a student, sometimes we all read books. Sometimes we did not understand the books. If another colleague or another teacher said something,
a good teacher. We always used to flock to good teachers, right?
Right. So the point is, neither is inferior to any other. It's different things which suits another person. That's all.
And then he comes to this yavat sanjayate kinchit sattvam stha varjangamam. I mean, this is, he says that sthavar is like something that is not moving.
Yes.
Or moving. It applies to everything. I mean, this is another thing that people are trying to figure out, that does a stone or does, we were talking about Krishna talking to Surya. Is there consciousness in Surya? Is there communication, cosmic communication? We were talking, but he's saying that this applies to everything, that is which is not moving and that which is moving. And it's interesting that the classification is just two classifications. It's like
basically it is animate and inanimate objects.
Yeah. So they all have this Purusha and Prakriti combination. They may not have gunas, they may not have emotions, but
they may not have. That's the point. The question is, I mean, you see, I often thought about it. Even a big boulder sits there, okay, and it is basically in inertia stage, okay. It is not moving, but within it, the atoms and the molecules are moving, okay, and that's what the fission of the atom is. It looks like an atom, but then when you break it, the whole energy dissipates out of it. In physics, we read potential energy and kinetic energy.
Yeah.
So the moving object shows kinetic energy. The inanimate or this boulder, that example I gave you, within it there is potential energy.
Yeah, I mean, we know that, science knows that. I think when Krishna says sthavar, I don't know if he's dissecting it down. I think he's talking to Arjuna, anything that moves, anything that doesn't.
I understand that, but what I'm saying is that.
But yeah, I mean, what you're saying makes scientific sense. Yeah.
Yes.
And that's what he says. Kṣetrajña sanyogat. So, the combination, sanjog is union, right? Union of kṣetra and kṣetrajña is there in all of them.
Yes. And the whole thing, whatever the physical world is, inanimate or animate, it is made with the union of kṣetra and kṣetrajña. I mean, one is the transcendental energy or the energy, and the other one is the material world with other elements.
Yeah.
So this is a very, very deep spiritual view of the world and
Yes.
understand.
Samam sarveshu bhuteshu. And this is what he says, samam sarveshu bhuteshu. Sarveshu means everything, every element, every bhut, or, every existence, samam, you have to feel like, they are saying, because they are combination of these things. Tishtantam Parameshwaram. And that Parameshwar is there in everything. This is, it's like in medicine, we are told never to say never again, it's like, or we never say always either. We always hedge about, there could be complication. I mean, I went for my, there was a problem with my implant in the tooth, and the doctor was saying, it may be this, it may be that, it may be that. I can't guarantee that it will work. But whatever he did worked. But all this hedging we are trained at, Krishna is not hedging at all. No, he's stating the fact as it is. Samam sarveshu bhutesu tisthantam parameshwaram. And he has said that many, all pervading. I think there is a repetition in Gita, but I think it's important to sometimes keep repeating that, it's like.
Actually, this verse actually endorses the one, Sarvamidam Khalu Brahmanam.
Yeah.
Okay. So in everything, there is Brahman.
And then he said, Vinashya, Avinashya. So Vinashi and Avinashi. So everything, Kalamidam, Brahma, right? I mean, that's
Brahman.
Brahman, yeah. But, he starts by Purusha and, Prakriti. He tells us how to reach them, and then there is no hierarchy. It's different ways of knowing. Then he says that everything has these two things, kṣetra and kṣetrajña. And now he's saying that Paramatma is everywhere.
Yes.
Samam pashyandi sarvatra samavasthitamishwaram na hinastyatmanatmanam. Those who don't kill themselves, in a way, he says, but he's not talking about killing the physical body. He's talking about, it's like, once you know all this, why do you want to spoil or, it's like, knowing this, you should be going on an ascending path, not a descending path.
Yes. Actually, this knowledge, what he tells in this verse, you attain a transcendental state of being, that knowledge.
Yeah.
It is not, you are not becoming what is called karma sannyas, you are not becoming a witness or anything. Knowing all these things, this is spiritual knowledge of this transcendental energy, you go into a transcendental state of being and you function from that high level.
So the functioning part is what he's saying, that
Exactly.
how do you function? Do you function in a way that you go on a slippery slope, or you function in a way where you're ascending path?
Exactly.
And many of us, it's like when and it happens to me many times when I go to India and when I was growing up, mithai. It's like, I mean, especially you, I mean, you have, thank God you have some diabetes, it's like,
Sweet person.
or who has diabetes. and Bengali, I mean, Mishti, right? What do you call them?
Yeah, Mishti.
Yeah. I mean, it's like.
Basically, the question is, you see, this state of being with this knowledge is very, very important. Again, the gunas or the traits, as they fight within ourselves, okay, will always divert us. Our perceptions will divert us. But this knowledge, when it becomes the guiding light, our actions become lot more.
Yeah. And I still believe that once your being is there, your actions follow. But here is the catch, and it took me several years, it's like of my life, Amitabh, to understand this. Then I said, why do you need sanjam? Why do you need discipline? Why do you need that control? And you need control because we'll be exploring that later, in 18th chapter, is your swabhav, is the momentum. So yes, you have reached there, but this momentum of action that I said it jokingly about mithai, but when the mithai comes, there is something inside you that, you know, that you go there. So that's the control, discipline, and all that is needed because we have this swabhav or natural tendency.
That's the
Some sort
function of gunas.
Hmm?
That's the function of gunas. That's what.
Yeah. And I think that's why Krishna is saying that be careful, don't do something that is harmful to you.
That's right.
And he's saying it because he knows that people do end up doing things that harmful to them.
Yes. Yes.
Because Duryodhan perhaps, it's like is this all-powerful, being who wants to be kind of controlling the whole, kṣetra, the whole area. And he is on a path of self-destruction. That's what Krishna, I think that's what this nahinasya. Don't be self-destructive. I think that's what Krishna's point here is that, know all this. And I agreed with you that once you are there, once your being gets there, and I used to totally believe that, but then I realized that no, there is some other forces which kind of push you into this area. And at that level, you have to control yourself.
That's right.
So, and that is what, Krishna talks about practice, right? So practice, keep practicing that. When the moment comes, how do you say no? It's like
See, although it may not be, I mean, we are talking about Gita, but actually, if you look at read Gibbon's Fall of Roman Empire,
yes,
the theory he postulates, and which is very true, the rotting usually starts from inside, either power, money, whatever it goes, okay? And this weakens that empire, and then comes the external forces. The mita, you have got your we have got our desire to have those sweets, and the sweets are right there. Together, they just make a mess.
but it is more important in 2026 or these times, because what's happening is that when I say swabhav or mithai is my weakness or your weakness, right?
No. Oh,
But there are other weaknesses that people have, like scrolling on your computer or mobile.
yep.
But that's your weakness. But somebody else knows your weakness now and puts it into algorithm
Yeah, they'll exploit it. That's
so
all.
that if you like one kind of, say you're watching YouTube and you're watching news, and you like one area, eastern area or western area or a country, that news, suddenly the algorithm starts feeding you that kind of news. So
Yes.
now even other people are taking advantage of your weakness
Yes.
or your strength, whatever you want to call it, so that strength in the sense that if you start watching Swami Sarvapriyanand, suddenly next time you go you will find some related material like about that.
It's like
So But
Krishna-
even that can become, I'm not using the word addiction, but you have to somewhere say, okay, no.
Well, no, I mean, basically what you are saying, I mean, any object, and we did talk about it, any object or even any ideology, you
Yeah.
get stuck to it, you are not going to see anything else after that. Everything is wrong. If you are addicted to that particular ideology or the thought, okay.
Yeah.
So your openness of your mind, your analysis is gone.
Yeah.
So that's very, very important. This kind of transcendental knowledge
Mhm.
or the yogic knowledge that you have, Gita is talking about, it tells you that do all the work, all the duty that one has to do
Yeah.
with this knowledge, spiritual knowledge as a background. You are not deferring those duties, but you are doing it, but you are doing it on a very, very high level. And that's the
Yeah.
striking point of those whole thing. And
Yeah. Totally, totally. And he's to get there is one thing, but he's also talking about self-destruction. And that is where I'm saying that watch out, two things. And I just recently wrote a blog on this as well, Amitabh. I've shared that with you. One, either you don't start because you know that once you start, you will keep going. Or if you start, then you have to have some place when you say, that's the stop.
yeah,
So those two things, how you control that, and then you practice that, and then you also progress and be there, because some of your things that have been, going on for, in our case, over 70 years, some of that momentum will push us into that kind of behavior, whether it is behavior or whether it is any action. Um, there is a tendency of that thing to still keep moving, and that's where I think this is important. And because ultimately it is, Krishna is very clear that this is the combination Prakriti, Purush, gunas, and then what you do determines what happens to you. And then he's now talking about nahi nastyatmanatmanam. Yeah, don't self-destroy, one in any way.
that's right.
So I think we have addressed that point well enough.
That's a very, very important point to stress upon.
Yeah, I think it's very important. I think everything that Gita tells us or Krishna tells us has a practical application, and 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 also, it's like uplifting knowledge. So yes, it's great to know about these facts, but also it's also important to know that what you do determines what happens next to you.
Sure.
Prakityaiva cha karmani kriyamaणani sarvasha ya pashyati tathatma kartaram sa pashyati. This is where I kind of bow down to Gita. It's like, it's just, we all think I am the doer, or we want to think, it's like it's my invention. And I'm not saying you should stop doing. I mean, you still have to do. The universe is not running because of you. You are part of this universe. Universe is doing something, and you are kind of a part of that universe. It's like you are playing a role. We have used the word nimitta matram, or you say that you are not doer, but
I have used the word, when we say we are doer, imperceptibly the pride, power, all these things seep in. On the other hand, looking at it as I'm the agent of the deed
yeah.
takes that whole thing away.
So you
Those,
say agent of the deed, and there are many, many ways of prakritya yuva chakarmani. I mean, all this is happening through Prakriti.
Exactly.
So I think universe is moving in a direction. There is purpose of everything around us. It's not just I have a purpose. The universe has a purpose. It's moving in that direction. And in that direct movement, you are playing a role. I'm not saying you're not playing an important role.
No.
Because Arjuna played an important role. Krishna played an important role. And I think this is super important to know.
Yes, the avatars are part of the system. And in putting it in a nutshell, we are the human component of this world order.
Yeah, but an important component.
Of course. I mean,
That's important to understand that, yeah, just because we are, it's a question of the pain is gone. When you are just part of it and you are playing a role, then you don't suffer when you lose, when you don't, the suffering is less, maybe joy is less, but I think joy is as much, just the suffering is not there. Because
I mean, that's the way to look at as a samadarshi or
yeah.
the equanimous attitude.
No, but that will happen if you know that
Yes,
your role
yes,
is an actor, as an actor, and
sure.
you want to act well,
Yes.
then
Basically, when you know a component of it, it's your duty, and it is our duty to perform the best of we can.
yeah. And when you do well, you feel okay, I did a good acting. It's like,
That's okay. All right.
but no, I mean this is a kind of this was eye-opening for me. I mean I've read this before as well, but prakityaiva cha karmani kriyamanani sarvasha. I mean he's not saying some. It's absolute. I mean that's where prakriti is the everything is happening is through prakriti. Ya pashyati tathatmanam. So this is how you have to see. That's what he says. Those who can see that way, he is seeing the real truth.
That's right.
So he is acknowledging that many people don't see it that way.
I mean, basically, the material world is functioning according to the laws of nature.
Right. Right. So if you see, I see, but not everybody wants to see that way.
Well, I mean, that's why from doer to agent of the deed.
Yeah.
Basically, it says you see different manifestations.
Yeah.
To us, it appears all different, they're distinctive and all that.
Yeah.
But once you have this transcendental knowledge, the view, you know everything's the same from this
You
age.
don't see the fragments, you see everything united. Yeah.
And this is the principle of Vishishta Advaita,
Yeah.
where one is seen as multiple.
So there is no fragmentation, basically.
It is an apparent fragmentation, but not really.
Yeah. Okay.
Not really.
Yeah, it appears that way.
That's right.
Yeah. Bhuta prithak. Yeah. Bhavam.
And this is a very important point because one is the absolute truth and the relative truth is that fragmentation. Because our faculties are so limited, we see many things and very distinctly and differently. That's all.
But then he talks about this anadi
Yes.
and nirgun.
Yeah.
That's how he describes this Atma, anadi and nirgun. So anadi means no beginning.
It is ever present.
Yeah.
This transcendental energy is ever present. Nirgun it is in own existence, not embodied. In its own existence, it doesn't get governed by the traits.
Yeah.
Adi and Nirgun. These two words are very, very important and characteristics of Atman and Brahman.
Sharirasthopi, so its abode is the body. Kaunteya na karoti na lipyate. It doesn't do anything and it doesn't get attached to anything. This is where like in the beginning, we talked about gunas and the glue, and then the feeling, that's how you feel and that's how you act. But then he comes here and he talks about this Atma, neither it does something nor it is attached to something, And it seems like there is a paradox here, but not really. It's like, so there is kind of dual truth here, in my view. One is that, yes, once you attach yourself in the gunas and everything, then you are that entity where you take a path and you what you do, you determine your own life beyond. But then really when Atma is Sakshi Bhav, then it's neither doing anything, neither it is Nirgun, means it's not getting attached to any of the gunas, and then it's not attached to anything. Na lipyate, na karoti. I mean, that's my understanding,
The way I look at it,
Yeah.
The essential nature of Atman or Brahman
Is this.
is nirgun, is without trait, it doesn't get attached to anything. Okay.
Yeah.
However, in the causal or material world, when it is embodied, it does get under influence of gunas.
And that's my understanding too. So once you know your Atma and once you know the real kind of, you can see the nirgun aspect. I mean, you can be this Sakshi Bhav Upadrashta. Then you can see that in reality it is Anadi. That's the one Bhokta. That's the Bhokta, part of it. So Bhokta is when you are attached. So is both possible at the same time? I don't think so. I think once you know your Nirgun part and once you know Sakshi Bhav, then it will be hard to have that, go back to that.
Yeah, I read somewhere, it's like seeing water in a glass.
Yeah.
Okay. It's sitting there, it's water, you know what it is. And you see the river, which is flowing, which is a totally different situation because it's in the causal world, okay, and it is moving. Therefore, it has to negotiate its path different ways and different times. Sometimes fast, rapid, sometimes slow, but essentially it is water what this glass holds, where it is stationary. So looking at it in its in its absolute form, Atma is nirgun, without traits, without any beginning. But as it is embodied, okay, it gets under influence of the traits, gunas and perceptions.
Yeah.
Because it's functioning one.
That's a very good way to describe it. It's like what strikes me is that Krishna first talks about those, the embodied one. And then he talks about this gyan, how do you know it and all that. And once you know it, then he gives you this part. He doesn't start from here in this.
Yeah. You see, in that example of the glass of water and the river, okay, when it's a question, it's a onlooker's point of view, okay. But once you got the knowledge, okay, then not only you see the river only, but you see flowing water.
Yeah.
That water comes in the mind.
Yeah. Okay. No, I think you're absolutely right. But what I was trying to say is that, that when we started at 19, Krishna was talking more about the embodied part.
Yes.
But then once he has given all that, and then he comes to this, final punch, it's like,
This is after spiritual knowledge.
yeah, this is after the spiritual knowledge, yeah. Yatha prakashi yatyakya kritsnam lokamimam ravi kshetram kshetri tatha kritsnam prakashayati bharata. So it's interesting that he's comparing this Atma as a jyoti.
Yes.
It's like the inner light or the inner sun, that one Atma, one sun can give all this light to earth and, nourish the whole thing, planets. One Atma can do the same thing to you, to you and me.
I remember you used to use the term inner flame. You used to use that.
I used to, yeah. Inner flame, yeah, it's inner light, inner flame.
Yeah, whatever. But the point is, once we know that, it is how it enlightens everything. This is the expression of this transcendental energy.
Yeah.
And it is there, it is outside yet inside. This is where it becomes very, very paradoxical. And I always quote that verse from Isha Upanishad. Om tadejati tannai taddure tadvantike tadantarasya sarvasam yesat sarvasya vajatam. He's far yet near, near yet far, doesn't have any shape, but assumes the shape of anything it enters. That's how it appears.
Yeah.
And that's essentially the same thought.
Atma is light. This is a great expression.
Yes.
It's like he's saying that, the same, comparing to sun and Atma, many of us don't see Atma as light. I know some people do dhyan, light. They're just doing light dhyan, prakash. But commonly it's not seen. It's seen as something like a nucleus, something. I have, even described that as a nucleus. But yes, I use the word inner flame, but inner light, and light as much as sun. It's like it's a kind of really important, powerful light. Kshetram kshetri tatha kritsnam prakashayati bharata. It just lightens everything if you let it do.
So
kṣetrajña yore va mantaram jnana chakshu. I love this jnana chakshu, sir. And it's such a nice word, jnana chakshu. It's like eye of the knowledge, but it doesn't really translate well in English.
yeah.
It's not eye of the mind. I want to repeat that. I think we mentioned that before as well in our last talk. That
this is what most of the time in Hindu philosophy it's called as a third eye, the inner vision, or inner realization.
Yeah.
Okay, that's why in some of the deities you will see there is a third eye in between the eyebrows. Basically, all that
that's more intuition than Gyan Chakshu. I see Gyan Chakshu. Go ahead and mention that, but I see it a little differently.
Yeah, I take it as a emblem of something, a concept, but the concept is totally inner knowledge. Who am I? How this world functions? Where is our position? And that's what Krishna is talking about in this chapter. When we know that, then our vision widens, and that is Gyan Chakshu, with the eye of knowledge. But I'm not talking about a particular sign, signature, or emblem or anything like that.
No.
The point is real spiritual realization.
Yeah.
And then we start seeing everything in a different mode.
So Gyan Chakshu, the way I see it, it's like I've talked about before, with you and others, swimming in silence. It's like that's the word that Einstein used, and he may not have related to Gyan Chakshu or Dhyan, but his exercise seems like, it's like he goes in silence and then he looks for answers. And to me, most of the creativity, most of the kind of the invention world where people say, this came to me, this idea came to me, rather than I invented this idea. Most people admit that something came. So I think Gyan Chakshu is something like that. When you are in silence, or when you are anayas, walking on the river and just sitting down somewhere in a jungle or a forest or jogging, an idea comes to you. And so if you develop that Gyan Chakshu, then you are able to have that decision making, clarity, and all those things kind of become spontaneous to you. I mean, it becomes like a second nature. Like you say that once you reach there, you act accordingly. What I say is that once you reach there, you think like that as well, and that Gyan Chakshu
Of course.
brings that all. It's not just spiritual knowledge. I mean, some people feel like if you are on a spiritual journey, you become good at spiritual kind of thinking only. You become successful in any way, anywhere you go. Like Arjun is not so much spiritual; he's a warrior, and he becomes more clear, he becomes more agile, maybe, and maybe his choices are there. What weapons to use.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
all those. When it sharpens you all around. That's
Yes,
what.
you are very, very correct about that. And actually, our session of Gita, that's why we are learning the concept rather than we are reciting the verses.
Yeah.
Okay. So, so
This time we did recite almost because every verse is so potent.
yes, you are reciting, but at the same time you are analyzing it, not by roto method. So
Yeah.
that's why. So what you said, these ideas came to some inventor and all those things. In a deep silence, when their mind is working, exploring, and everything, and then a flash of light comes, a different concept comes, and they work on it, and then they
That
take
is
it.
Gyan Chakshu in my view.
Yes, that's fine. That's okay. All right. So, so this one says that once we know through this kind of realization, then we can understand what is the field of knowledge or field of action and what is the knowledge about, or knower of this field. And
Yeah.
that's what is important.
Yeah.
Bottom line is. And this pertains to spiritual level,
Mhm.
can be in different aspects of life in the same way,
Yeah.
this thought. But
Yeah.
here it talks about more about spiritual knowledge.
Spiritual knowledge, but Krishna always talks about material world as well,
Sure.
because he always pushes Arjun to action, and through Arjun us to action too.
It's like physics and engineering. You have to know the formula, then you have to apply it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So applied spiritual knowledge.
Yeah.
So
Great.
it's to me, this chapter is very, very important. When
Oh
I
God,
first time encountered it,
yeah,
I just loved it.
Amitabh, I can't thank you enough for doing this together. And no, we definitely we have come to this 13th chapter, which is amazing chapter. And while we are doing it, for this podcast or for other, seemingly for others, we don't want anyone to think that we are kind of expert Gita thing, but we do analyze, we do think about it, we do prepare in many ways. So in that preparation, we are understanding Gita better than what we did before, at least me.
This podcast to me is satsang.
It's a great satsang. That's a great word. I think we should finish here. That satsang is a great word to say that, it nourishes each other.
That's right.
Shankaracharya said, satsangatve nisangatve.
सब है मामा का पांडवश्ची किम कुर्वत संग